The morning light of 3 different suns shone through the crystal dome of the Galactic Council building. Ambassador Zektar of the Zephyrian Empire straightened his blue-scaled neck as he walked into the great meeting hall. Today would be a good day. He could feel it in his bones. The hall was huge, with seats arranged in a perfect circle. Each seat was made for a different type of alien. Some were tall, some were short, some needed water, others needed different air to breathe. In the center stood a platform where speakers would talk to the whole council. Zektar looked around and smiled with his sharp teeth. Representatives from 47 different worlds were here. The Altarians with their 4 arms were already in their seats. The rock-like granite people were sitting still as always. The floating jellyfish creatures from Nebula Prime were hovering above their special tanks. But something was different today. One seat was empty. The human seat. Ambassador Sarah Chen was not there. Her chair sat empty, looking strange without her small human form in it. Zektar had gotten used to seeing her there every meeting for the past 5 years, always asking questions, always making suggestions that nobody asked for. "Where is the human?" asked Ambassador Vel9 of Altair. His 4 arms moved in the way that meant he was confused. "Maybe she is sick," said someone else. "Or maybe they finally realized they don't belong here," Zektar said with a laugh. The meeting was supposed to start in 10 minutes. The council secretary, a tall, thin creature with 6 eyes, tried to call Earth. The communication screen flickered and then showed a simple message in basic galactic standard. "The Terran Federation has withdrawn from galactic affairs. Do not attempt further contact, that was all. No explanation, no goodbye. Just that cold message." Zektar felt a warm feeling in his chest. Finally. The humans were gone. No more of their strange ideas about helping everyone and working together. No more of their odd questions about why things were done the way they were done. "Well," said Chancellor Mordoon of the Altarian Republic, "I suppose we should continue without them." "Good riddance," Zektar said loudly. "Those warlike primitives were holding us back anyway." Many heads nodded around the circle. The humans had only been in space for about 200 years. That was nothing compared to the thousands of years the other races had been traveling between stars. Humans were new and young and didn't understand the proper ways of doing things. "They always questioned our methods," said the representative from the core worlds. "They wanted to change everything. And they were so aggressive," added someone else, "always talking about fighting and war and protecting people." "Exactly," Zektar continued. "True civilization is about peace and order, following the rules that have worked for thousands of years. Humans just couldn't understand that." The meeting went on without the humans. They talked about trade agreements and mining rights and territorial boundaries. Everything seemed easier, without Sarah Chen asking her annoying questions like, "But what about the workers?" or, "Have you thought about the environmental impact?" But as the day went on, something strange happened. The council secretary kept trying to contact human colonies and trading posts across the galaxy. Every single one gave the same message. Every human space station, every human ship, every human settlement, all of them had the same automated response. "The Terran Federation has withdrawn from galactic affairs. Do not attempt further contact." By the end of the day, reports were coming in from across the galaxy. Human diplomats had left their posts. Human traders had closed their shops. Human doctors had left the hospitals where they worked. Human engineers had walked away from their jobs, all at the same time. All without warning, all without saying goodbye. "It's like they planned this," whispered Vel9 during a break. "Like they all knew this was going to happen." "Impossible," Zektar said. "Humans aren't smart enough to plan something this big. They probably just got scared and ran away." But deep down, something felt wrong. Humans didn't usually run away from anything. In fact, they were famous for running toward danger, not away from it. Sarah Chen had once told him about human soldiers who would throw themselves on bombs to save their friends. She had said it like it was a normal thing. That Evening, as the council members prepared to leave, they received more reports. Every human military ship had disappeared. Not destroyed, just gone. The human fleet that had been patrolling the outer rim against pirates had vanished. The human peacekeepers who had been keeping two alien races from fighting over a water world had left their posts. They'll be back, Zektar told himself as he walked to his private ship. Where else can they go? This is the only civilization in the galaxy. But as his ship took off from the council world, he looked down at the city below. For the first time in years, he noticed something. The waste management systems were running perfectly. The power grid was stable. The traffic control was smooth. All the things that made the council world work so well. He had never thought about who maintained all of that. Who made sure everything ran smoothly while the important people made important decisions. The next morning brought more news. The Council's intelligence network reported that all human worlds had gone completely dark. Not just quiet. Dark. No. Communications, no ship traffic, no energy signatures. It was as if millions of humans had simply vanished. The Council called an emergency meeting. This time, representatives came from all over the galaxy. Everyone wanted to know what had happened to the humans. Maybe they all died from some disease, suggested the ambassador from Rigel. Maybe they were invaded by something from outside. The galaxy, said another. Maybe they just decided to hide on their worlds and pretend we don't exist, offered a third. Zektar stood up to speak. My fellow council members, he said in his most important voice, I think we should see this as an opportunity. For too long, the humans have been a disruptive force in our galaxy. They questioned our traditions, they challenged our methods, they refused to accept the natural order of things. He spread his arms wide. Now we can finally have the peace and order we have always wanted. We can run the galaxy the way it should be run, without humans getting in the way with their primitive ideas about equality and cooperation. The hall erupted in cheers and applause. Representatives from dozens of worlds stood up and clapped. Finally, they could have a galaxy run by civilized beings who understood the proper way of doing things. I propose, Zektar continued, that we seal off human space completely. We declare it a contaminated zone. No ships go in, no signals go out. We protect ourselves from whatever madness caused them to abandon civilization. The vote was unanimous. Every single representative voted to cut off human space from the rest of the galaxy. As Zektar flew home that night, he felt proud and satisfied. He had helped save galactic civilization from the chaos that humans always brought with them. Now there would be peace. Now there would be order. Now things could go back to the way they were supposed to be. He had no way of knowing that in 3 months, he would be desperately wishing Sarah Chen was sitting in her chair, asking her annoying questions and making her unwanted suggestions. The humans had left without a word, and the council thought they understood why. They were wrong. 3 months had passed since the humans disappeared. Zektar was enjoying his morning meal when his communication device buzzed with an urgent message. He almost ignored it. Urgent messages were usually about boring trade disputes or minor, territorial arguments. But this message was from Gorvan, the head of the Kepler Mining Consortium. Gorvan never sent urgent messages unless there was serious money involved. Zektar, the message began, we have a problem. The mining operation in the Vega system has stopped working. Zektar frowned. The Vega system was one of the richest mining areas in the galaxy. Rare metals came from there that were needed for building ships and making advanced technology. The operation had been running perfectly for over 50 years. What kind of problem? Zektar sent back. The reply came, quickly. The gravity manipulators are failing. All of them. At the same time. Gravity manipulators were the machines that let them mine inside the cores of planets. They could make gravity stronger or weaker in small areas, which made it possible to dig deep and extract precious metals that would be impossible to reach otherwise. So fix them, Zektar replied. That's the problem. We don't know how. The humans designed them. They maintained them. They're the only ones who understood how they really worked. Zektar put down his food. This was not what he wanted to hear. Surely, someone else can figure it out. They're just machines. We've had our best engineers looking at them for weeks. The technology is more advanced than we thought. The humans shared the basic plans with us, but there are parts we don't understand. Components that seem to work on principles our scientists haven't discovered yet. Over the next few days, more bad news arrived. The shipping routes that connected the different worlds of the galaxy were having problems. Ships were getting lost in areas of space that had been perfectly safe before. Captain Thexel of the Rigelian merchant fleet sent a report that made Zektar's stomach hurt. We lost 3 ships last week trying to follow the old trade route through the Horsehead Nebula. The navigational data we have is incomplete. The humans always handled that route, and apparently, they never shared their complete star charts with anyone. Zektar pulled up the Galactic Navigation Database. The trade routes were marked clearly, but when he looked closer, he saw something troubling. Many of the routes just said "human maintained" in the notes section. He had never noticed that before. How many routes did the humans maintain? He asked his assistant. The answer came back an hour later. Approximately 60% of all major trade routes, sir. They also maintained most of the navigation beacons in dangerous areas of space. 60%. Zektar felt sick, but the worst news came from the Outer Rim. Reports were flooding in about pirate attacks. The peaceful sectors that had been safe for decades were suddenly full of raiders and criminals. Admiral Kexidin of the Altarian Defense Force sent a message that made Zektar want to hide under his bed. The entire Outer Rim is in chaos. Pirate fleets are attacking merchant ships daily. They're coming from sectors that have been quiet for years. How is that possible? Zektar demanded. We have patrol ships. Not enough. It turns out the humans were patrolling huge areas of space that we didn't even know about. Their security reports were so routine that no one paid attention to them. They would just file brief reports saying, "All quiet in Sector 7" or "Normal patrol, no incidents." Zektar looked up the human security reports. Admiral Kexton was right. Page after page of boring reports. Patrol completed without incident. No suspicious activity detected. All shipping lanes clear. He had never realized that behind each of those boring reports was a human ship actually, flying through dangerous space, actually looking for trouble, actually keeping the trade routes safe. What about our own patrol ships? He asked. We have patrol ships, but they cover the areas near our homeworlds. The humans were patrolling the empty spaces between civilizations, the places where pirates like to hide. As if things weren't bad. Enough. The food situation was getting worse. The Altarian agricultural worlds that fed half the galaxy were reporting crop failures. Not just small problems, complete failures of entire continents of farmland. Dr. Meltoon, the head of Altarian agriculture, sent a report that made no sense to Zektar. The soil chemistry is all wrong. The crops are getting diseases we've never seen before. The human agricultural advisors introduced something they called sustainable farming methods about 10 years ago. We don't understand how it worked, but it doubled our food production. So go back to the old methods, Zektar suggested. We tried. The soil won't support the old methods anymore. It's like the humans changed something fundamental about how our agriculture works. Without their guidance, we can't make it work. Zektar was starting to get a headache. What exactly did the humans do to your farms? They introduced new bacteria into the soil. They planted different crops in rotation. They brought in insects and small animals that they said would help. They called it balancing the ecosystem. We didn't understand it, but it worked amazingly well. And now? Now the whole system is falling apart. The bacteria are dying. The insects are gone. The soil is becoming poisonous to our crops. Reports like this were coming in from all over the galaxy. The Centaurian shipyards couldn't repair their manufacturing equipment. The humans had upgraded their systems with something called predictive maintenance algorithms that kept the machines running perfectly. Without human technicians, the machines were breaking down one by one. The medical stations throughout the galaxy were sending desperate requests for help. The humans had been quietly working on treatments for diseases that affected other species. They had shared their research, but their medical files were filled with terms that no one else understood. Words like empathy-based treatment and patient-centered care and holistic healing approaches. Dr. Vexara from the Central Medical Authority sent a message that made Zektar want to scream. We have the human medical data, but we can't use it. Their treatments weren't just about giving the right medicine. They somehow knew how to adapt treatments for individual patients. They could look at a patient and know things that our scanners couldn't detect. That's impossible, Zektar replied. Medicine is science. You follow the procedures and give the right drugs. That's what we thought. But human medicine worked better than ours, even though their technology wasn't more advanced. They had something we don't have. They called it bedside manner and clinical intuition. The communication networks were starting to fail, too. Not the technology. That was working fine. But the different species were having more and more trouble understanding each other. Misunderstandings were happening daily. Trade negotiations were falling apart because of translation errors. Zektar realized that humans had been translating between different species for years, not just converting words from one language to another, but explaining cultural differences and helping different species understand each other's thinking. A message from the Trade Council made this clear. We're having serious problems with the Aquatic Alliance. They keep misunderstanding our trade proposals. The humans used to help us communicate with them. Apparently, there were cultural nuances we never understood. As the third month ended, Zektar sat in his office looking at reports from across the galaxy. Mining operations failing, trade routes collapsing, pirate attacks increasing, food shortages spreading, medical treatments failing, communication breaking down, all because the humans were gone. He remembered Sarah Chen sitting in her chair at the council meetings, always quiet, always polite, always ready with helpful suggestions that everyone ignored. He had thought she was annoying. He had thought the humans were just trying to show off. Now he was starting to understand that maybe the humans hadn't been showing off at all. Maybe they had actually been helping. For the first time since the humans left, Zektar began to wonder if the council had made a terrible mistake. 6 months after the humans vanished, Zektar barely recognized the galaxy he lived in. What had once been a peaceful, well-ordered civilization was falling apart piece by piece. He was in his office reading another disaster report when his personal communication device chimed. The caller ID showed his old friend, Ambassador Vel9 of Altair. They had known each other for 20 years, but Vel9 looked terrible on the screen. His usually bright blue skin was pale, and his 4 arms were shaking. Zektar, Vel9, said, his voice weak. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Of course. What is it? Do you remember the human medical teams that worked on Altair Prime? The ones at the Neurological Research Center? Zektar nodded. Yes, I remember you complained about them once. Said they were taking jobs from Altarian doctors. Vel9's eyes filled with tears. My daughter Kesara is sick. She has the same condition that killed my grandmother 50 years ago. A neurological disease that slowly destroys the mind. There was no cure back then. I'm sorry to hear that, Zektar said, though he didn't understand why Vel9 was telling him this. But 5 years ago, the human doctors found a treatment. They couldn't cure the disease completely, but they could stop it from getting worse. They could give patients their lives back. Zektar felt a cold feeling in his stomach. What are you saying? The treatment is in the medical databases. All the research is there, the drugs, the procedures, everything. But it doesn't work. What? Do you mean it doesn't work? Vel9 was crying now. The human doctors didn't just follow procedures. They adapted the treatment for each patient. They would look at my daughter and somehow know that she needed a different dose, or a different combination of drugs, or a different schedule of treatments. But surely your doctors can figure that out. They've been trying for 3 months. They follow the human procedures exactly, but patients keep getting worse. The humans had some kind of intuition that our doctors don't have. They could see things that medical scanners couldn't detect. Zektar closed his eyes. How is Kesara? She's getting worse every day. In a few months, she won't remember who I am. In a year, she'll be gone. After the call ended, Zektar sat in his office for a long time. Velnine's daughter was going to die because the humans weren't there to help her. The medicine existed, but without humans to use it properly, it was worthless. The communication system buzzed with another urgent message. This one was from the Emergency Council session. Chancellor Morden was calling all ambassadors to an immediate meeting. The council building looked different now. The crystal dome was cracked in several places. Apparently the humans had been maintaining that too. Inside, the great meeting hall felt cold and empty. Only 32 representatives showed up. 15 worlds had stopped sending ambassadors because they couldn't afford the trip anymore. Chancellor Morden looked older than Zektar remembered. His usually perfect appearance was disheveled, and his voice was tired. Fellow council members, Morden began, we face the worst crisis in galactic history. Our civilization is collapsing, and we need to face the truth about why. The hall was silent. Everyone knew what he was going to say. The humans weren't just members of our council. They were the foundation that held everything together. While we were making speeches and passing laws, they were doing the work that kept our society functioning. A representative from the Outer Rim worlds stood up. Chancellor, my people are starving. The trade routes that brought food to our worlds have collapsed. Pirate attacks have made shipping too dangerous. We need help. What kind of help? Morden asked. The kind the humans used to provide. Protection for our ships, maintenance for our trade routes, medical supplies for our sick. Morden spread his 4 arms in a gesture of helplessness. We don't know how to do those things. We never learned because the humans were always there to do them for us. More representatives stood up with similar stories. The farming worlds couldn't grow enough food. The mining worlds couldn't extract their resources. The manufacturing worlds couldn't maintain their equipment. But the worst story came from Dr. Hexula of the Central Medical Authority. She stood up slowly, her tentacles trembling. I have reviewed the medical records from the past 6 months, she said. Across the galaxy, death rates have increased by 40%. Not from new diseases, but from old diseases that the humans had been treating successfully. The hall became very quiet. The humans shared their medical knowledge freely. All their research was available to us, but we never learned how to use it properly. They had a way of understanding sickness that went beyond technology. They could see hope in hopeless cases and find solutions when our scanners showed nothing could be done. Zektar thought about Velnine's daughter, about all the people across the galaxy who were dying because human doctors weren't there to save them. Dr. Hexula continued. I have been studying human medical files for months. Their treatments weren't just about the right medicine or the right surgery. They wrote about something they called caring for the whole patient. They talked about emotional healing and treating the person, not just the disease. What does that mean? Someone asked. I don't know, Dr. Hexula admitted. Their medical files are full of concepts we don't understand. They wrote about hope and comfort and dignity as if these things were medicine. They talked about holding patients' hands and listening to their fears as if these actions could heal. An old representative from the core world spoke up. Maybe that's just primitive superstition. Maybe, Dr. Hexula said. But their primitive superstition saved more lives than our advanced science ever did. As the meeting continued, more and more truth came out. The humans had been quietly solving problems that other species didn't even know existed. They had been maintaining systems, preventing conflicts, and fixing broken things just because they needed to be fixed. The agricultural crisis was getting worse. The Altarian food worlds that fed half the galaxy were now importing food from other systems. But the other systems were having their own problems. The transportation networks were falling apart. Ships were getting lost in space because the navigation beacons weren't being maintained. The humans had been checking and repairing thousands of beacons across the galaxy, but they had filed such routine reports that no one realized how much work they were doing. The mining operations were shutting down one by one. The humans had introduced advanced techniques that increased production and safety, but without their expertise, the mines were becoming dangerous and unprofitable. Even the communication systems were failing. Not the technology itself, but the understanding between different species. The humans had served as translators and mediators, helping different cultures understand each other. Without them, old conflicts were starting again. Chancellor Mordun stood up to make his final statement. 6 months ago, we celebrated when the humans left. We thought we were getting rid of a primitive, disruptive force. We thought we could run the galaxy better without them. He looked around the nearly empty hall. We were wrong. The humans weren't disrupting our civilization. They were holding it together. While we were arguing about politics and power, they were making sure the lights stayed on, the food kept growing, and the sick got healed. The vote was unanimous, but it felt hollow. The council agreed to try to contact the humans and ask them to return. But when they tried to send messages to human space, they got the same automated response they had been getting for 6 months. The Terran Federation has withdrawn from galactic affairs. Do not attempt further contact. As Zektar flew home that night, he looked out at the stars and wondered how many of the problems in the galaxy could have been prevented if the Council had just listened to Sarah Chen, if they had paid attention to her quiet suggestions instead of dismissing them as primitive human thinking. He thought about all the times she had asked questions that seemed annoying at the time. What about the workers who might lose their jobs? Have you considered the environmental impact? What if this policy hurts the people who need help most? Now those questions seemed like the most important ones that anyone had ever asked. The humans were gone, and the galaxy was learning what it meant to live without them. 1 year after the humans disappeared, the Galactic Council made a decision that would have been unthinkable 12 months earlier. They were going to send ships into human space to find out what happened and beg the humans to come back. Zektar volunteered to lead the expedition. He told himself it was because he was a skilled diplomat, but deep down he knew it was because he felt guilty. He had been one of the loudest voices celebrating when the humans left. Now he wanted to be the one to bring them home. The expedition fleet was larger than any exploration mission in galactic history. 12 ships from 8 different worlds, with the best scientists, diplomats, and military officers the Council could find. They also brought gifts, rare metals, advanced technology, and formal apologies written in beautiful calligraphy. The journey to the edge of human space took 2 weeks. As they approached the first human system, Zektar felt nervous in a way he had never experienced before. What if the humans refused to see them? What if they were angry? What if they had good reasons for leaving that the Council couldn't understand? The first human world they visited was called New Geneva. It had been a major trading hub with a population of 50 million humans. Their ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system and immediately began scanning for signs of life. What they found was impossible to believe. "Sir," the sensor officer reported, "I'm detecting no life signs on the planet, but the cities are still there. The buildings are intact. The infrastructure appears to be undamaged." Zektar ordered a closer scan. The images that came back on the main screen made everyone on the bridge fall silent. New Geneva looked perfect. The cities were clean and undamaged. The spaceports were in good condition. The orbital stations were still functioning. But there were no people anywhere. "It's like they all just walked away," whispered Dr. Kanara, the expedition's chief scientist. They landed a team on the planet. The exploration crew walked through empty streets that should have been filled with humans. Shops were clean and organized, as if the owners had carefully closed them before leaving. Homes were tidy and peaceful, as if families had packed their belongings and departed in perfect order. There were no signs of panic, no evidence of evacuation, no indication of any kind of emergency. The humans had simply left, but they had left something behind. In the center of the main city, they found a building with a sign that said, "Information for Visitors." Inside was a single room with a holographic projector. When they activated it, a recorded message began to play. The hologram showed Sarah Chen, the human ambassador who had sat in the council for 5 years. She looked calm and sad as she spoke. "If you are watching this message, it means you have come looking for us. We want you to know that we left by choice, not because of any emergency or disaster. We left because we realized that we could not be the people we wanted to be while remaining part of galactic civilization." Zektar felt a sharp pain in his chest. The human ambassador's words were polite, but he could hear the hurt underneath them. For 200 years, humans have tried to be good neighbors to the species of this galaxy. We shared our knowledge, our resources, and our efforts freely. We helped where we could and asked for little in return. We believed that different species could work together to build something better than any of us could build alone. The hologram paused, and Sarah Chen's expression became sadder. "We were wrong. Not about the possibility of cooperation, but about whether the other species wanted it. We offered partnership, but you wanted servants. We offered cooperation, but you wanted submission. We offered our best efforts, but you wanted our compliance." The words hit Zektar like physical blows. Every sentence was true, and he knew it. "We realized that our presence was making you weaker, not stronger. By solving your problems for you, we prevented you from learning to solve them yourselves. By maintaining your systems, we prevented you from understanding how those systems worked. By keeping the peace, we prevented you from learning how to live peacefully with each other." Dr. Kanara spoke quietly. "She's right. We became dependent on them without realizing it." The message continued. "We also realized that staying would eventually destroy what we value most about being human. Our desire to help others was being treated as weakness. Our willingness to work for the common good was seen as stupidity. Our belief in equality and cooperation was viewed as primitive thinking." Zektar remembered all the times he had called human ideas primitive and backward. He remembered laughing at their concerns about workers and environmental damage and fairness. "So we made a choice. We decided to leave and find a place where we can build the kind of society we believe in, a place where helping others is valued, where cooperation is seen as strength, where different types of people can work together as equals." The hologram looked directly at the camera, and Zektar felt like Sarah Chen was looking directly at him. "We hope that someday, the species of this galaxy will learn to work together the way we always believed they could. We hope you will learn to solve your own problems and build your own peace. We hope you will discover that taking care of each other makes everyone stronger, not weaker." The message ended with coordinates, a location far beyond the edge of the galaxy where the humans could be found if anyone wanted to look for them. The expedition visited 17 more human worlds. Every single one was the same: empty, clean, undamaged, and abandoned. On each world, they found evidence that the humans had been preparing for their departure for decades. Underground facilities had been carefully dismantled and removed. Advanced technology, far beyond what humans had shared with the galaxy, had been taken away. Research laboratories showed signs of having contained scientific equipment that was more sophisticated than anything the Council had ever seen. Dr. Kanara made a discovery that shook the entire expedition. In the ruins of a research facility on Earth, she found evidence of human scientific achievements that should have been impossible. They had developed faster-than-light communication that doesn't Require relay stations, she reported. Medical technology that can regrow entire organs. Manufacturing techniques that can create materials we've never seen before. Why didn't they share this technology with us? Asked the military commander. Dr. Kanara looked at him sadly. Would you give advanced weapons to children who were fighting in the playground? The truth was becoming clear. The humans had been much more advanced than they had let anyone know. They had shared basic improvements to help other species, but they had kept their most powerful discoveries to themselves. On Earth, they found the Human Council building where Sarah Chen had worked for 5 years. In her office, they discovered a personal journal that she had left behind. Zektar read it with growing shame and horror. The journal detailed years of frustration as Sarah Chen tried to help the Council solve problems that seemed obvious to human thinking. She had suggested solutions for the food crisis, the pirate problem, the communication breakdowns, and dozens of other issues. Every suggestion had been ignored or dismissed. One entry made Zektar want to cry. Today, I suggested that we share medical technology freely between all species, so that everyone could benefit from each other's discoveries. Ambassador Zektar laughed and said that humans always wanted to give things away because we were too primitive to understand the value of exclusive knowledge. I smiled and agreed with him, but inside I was thinking about the children who will die because we can't share a simple cure for a preventable disease. Another entry was even worse. The Council voted today to increase mining quotas on the Outer Rim worlds, even though it will destroy the environment and displace millions of people. I tried to explain why this was a bad idea, but they told me that humans worry too much about unimportant things. I wanted to scream at them that people's lives are not unimportant things. The final entry was dated just 1 week before the humans left. I have spent 5 years trying to help these people, and they have spent 5 years treating me like a naive child. They don't want cooperation. They want dominance. They don't want peace. They want control. They don't want to build a better galaxy. They want to maintain their power over a broken one. We cannot fix this by staying. We can only fix it by leaving, and letting them learn from their own mistakes. As the expedition prepared to leave human space, they made one final discovery that changed everything. On a small research station near Earth, they found a complete record of human contributions to galactic civilization. The list was hundreds of pages long. Every innovation that had improved life for other species could be traced back to human research. Every solution to major galactic problems had been quietly suggested by human scientists or diplomats. Every improvement in technology, medicine, agriculture, transportation, and communication had human fingerprints on it. The other species had provided resources and labor, but humans had provided the ideas, the solutions, and the knowledge that made galactic civilization work. Dr. Kanara summarized the finding in her report. For the past 200 years, humans have been the brain of galactic civilization. We provided the body, but they provided the thinking. Without them, we are like a body without a mind. We can survive, but we cannot thrive. 2 years after the humans left, Zektar stood in his office, looking out at a galaxy that was dying slowly but surely. The view from his window showed a city that was falling apart. Buildings that had once been maintained by human engineering crews were developing cracks and structural problems. The power grid that had once run perfectly was now subject to daily blackouts. The Council had met in emergency session dozens of times, but their meetings accomplished nothing. Without human mediators to help different species understand each other, the sessions often ended in shouting matches and walkouts. 3 more worlds had stopped sending representatives altogether. Vel9's daughter had died 6 months ago. The funeral had been attended by hundreds of people whose family members had also died from diseases that human doctors could have treated. Zektar had spoken at the service, but what could he say? That they had traded the lives of innocent people for their own pride? The reports that crossed his desk each day painted a picture of a civilization in collapse. Food shortages were becoming permanent on 17 worlds. The mining operations that provided raw materials for technology had shut down on half the major extraction planets. Transportation between worlds had become dangerous and unreliable. But the worst part was the silence. The galaxy had become a quiet place. The networks that had once carried constant communication between worlds now carried only essential messages. Trade negotiations had become impossible because different species could no longer understand each other's cultural expectations. Old prejudices and misunderstandings were turning into new conflicts. Zektar was reading a report about fighting between the Aquatic Alliance and the Desert Confederacy when his communication device chimed. The message was from Admiral Kexden, and it contained only coordinates and a single word: come. The coordinates were for a location at the very edge of the galaxy, near the place where the humans had disappeared 2 years earlier. Zektar gathered a small crew and took his personal ship to investigate. What he found there shocked him. Floating in space near the edge of the galaxy was a massive structure unlike anything he had ever seen. It was clearly human-built, but the technology was far beyond anything humans had ever revealed to the galaxy. The structure was beautiful and organic-looking, as if it had been grown rather than constructed. Admiral Kexden's ship was already there, along with ships from 5 other council members. As Zektar docked with the structure, he was met by a figure he hadn't seen in 2 years. Sarah Chen looked exactly the same as she had during her years on the council, but something about her presence felt different. She seemed calmer, more peaceful, and somehow more powerful than he remembered. "Hello, Zektar," she said with a sad smile. "Thank you for coming." "Sarah," he said, and found that his voice was shaking. "We've been looking for you. We need your help." "I know," she said simply. "We've been watching." She led him through corridors that seemed to be made of some kind of living metal. The walls were smooth and warm to the touch, and they gave off a soft light that felt somehow comforting. Other human crew members nodded politely as they passed, but Zektar noticed that they all had the same peaceful, confident air that Sarah displayed. They arrived at a large observation deck with a transparent wall that looked out into space. Through the wall, Zektar could see something that made his mind struggle to understand what he was looking at. In the distance, barely visible, was another galaxy. But this galaxy was different from the one they had left behind. It seemed to glow with a soft, steady light, and Zektar could somehow sense that it was full of life and activity. "We've been building," Sarah said quietly. "A place where different species can work together as equals, where helping others is valued above personal gain, where cooperation is seen as strength, not weakness." "How many species are there?" Zektar asked. 47 so far. Some are refugees from our old galaxy who were tired of the constant conflicts and inequality. Others are species we met during our journey. All of them share the same basic values: respect for life, commitment to cooperation, and belief that everyone deserves dignity and care. Zektar felt a deep pain in his chest. "We were wrong," he said, "about everything. We were wrong about you. Wrong about what you were trying to do. Wrong about what civilization should be." Sarah nodded sadly. "We know. We watched your galaxy for the past 2 years. We saw the suffering that resulted from our leaving. We saw good people die because we weren't there to help them." "Then why didn't you come back?" "Because coming back wouldn't have solved the real problem. The real problem wasn't that you needed our help. The real problem was that you had forgotten how to help each other." She gestured toward the observation window. "Every species in our new galaxy contributes something unique and valuable. The aquatic people are amazing engineers. The silicon-based life forms are incredible artists. The energy beings are natural teachers. Everyone gives what they can and receives what they need. But in your old galaxy, most species had stopped contributing. They had become consumers of civilization rather than builders of it. They expected others to solve their problems, maintain their systems, and keep their peace. Zektar knew she was right. What can we do? Sarah was quiet for a long moment. You can learn to take care of each other the way we tried to teach you. You can learn to value cooperation over competition. You can learn to see other species as partners rather than rivals or servants. Will you help us? We are helping you. This station contains the complete records of everything we learned during our time in your galaxy. Every solution we developed, every technique we discovered, every piece of knowledge we gained. It's all here, freely available to anyone who wants to learn. She touched a panel on the wall, and displays appeared showing massive databases of information. Medical techniques, agricultural methods, engineering principles, diplomatic strategies, everything the humans had learned about making civilization work. But, Sarah continued, we're not coming back to do the work for you. You have to learn to do it yourselves. You have to learn to care about each other the way we cared about you. Zektar spent 3 days on the human station, learning about the knowledge they were offering. The databases contained solutions to every problem the galaxy was facing, but they also contained something more important. They contained examples of how to think about problems in ways that considered everyone's welfare. When he was ready to leave, Sarah walked him to his ship. There's one more thing, she said. We're not the only ones watching your galaxy. There are other civilizations out here among the stars, older and more powerful than any of us. They judge younger civilizations by how they treat each other. What? Do you mean? Some civilizations earn the right to join the larger community of galactic species. Others are left alone until they learn to cooperate peacefully. A few are actively contained when they become too dangerous to their neighbors. Zektar felt a chill run down his spine. What category is our galaxy in? That depends on what you do with the knowledge we're giving you. You have a choice to make. You can use this information to help everyone, or you can use it to gain advantages over each other. You can learn to work together, or you can continue fighting until there's nothing left worth fighting over. As Zektar's ship departed from the human station, he carried with him the complete database of human knowledge and a message for the Galactic Council. The message was simple. Learn to take care of each other, or lose the right to be part of the larger universe. Back on the Council world, Zektar delivered his report to a session attended by representatives from only 23 worlds. Many of the others were too busy dealing with crises to send ambassadors. The humans have given us everything we need to rebuild our civilization, he said. But they've also made it clear that we have to do the work ourselves. No one is coming to save us. We have to save ourselves. The debate that followed was heated and painful. Some representatives wanted to use the human knowledge to gain advantages over their rivals. Others argued for sharing everything freely with all species. In the end, the deciding vote came from an unexpected source. A young Altarian scientist named Dr. Mel Ara stood up to speak. She was Vel9's niece, and she had been one of the people working desperately to save patients without human medical knowledge. My cousin died because we were too proud to listen to the humans when they were here, she said. My family has lost 3 people to diseases that human doctors could have treated easily. I will not let pride kill anyone else. The humans were right about everything. They were right about cooperation being stronger than competition. They were right about caring for everyone instead of just our own people. They were right about working together instead of fighting over scraps. She looked around the half-empty hall. We can honor their memory and their sacrifice by finally learning the lessons they tried to teach us. We can build the kind of civilization they believed we were capable of becoming. The vote was close, but it passed. The Council agreed to share all human knowledge freely with every species in the galaxy. They agreed to establish new institutions based on cooperation rather than competition. They agreed to try, at last, to become the civilization the humans had always believed they could be.